But yeah, go Andrew. Go.
I don't remember what I was going to
Okay.
say. All right, what's good, everyone? Ninja To Viaduct back at it again. Tonight, I'm joined by the usual cast of characters, Raymond and Chris. And as for me, I'm your host, Andrew. Now, for tonight's main topic, we're going to talk about toxicity in games. But before that, we're going to go ahead and give you a little bit of facts, at least from our general market research when it comes to toxicity in games. So, Chris, drop some facts on us.
Yeah, so we all know that gaming is such a huge industry, right? We all play games. I mean, games have transformed to something way bigger than it was before. Back when it first started in like the '80s to now, even further back. And today, especially in the competitive sporting esports, right? You can take these numbers. Esports has reached a yearly revenue of 1 billion, right? And not just the money part is interesting, but it's also the fact that there's a huge industry around gaming, right? Whether it's professional, career-wise, for esports, going back into the collegiate and the high school leagues, professionally, you know, it's grown so big. But despite the growth and the money, gaming is still an unfortunate culture of a lot of harassment. Um, that's unfortunately a bit too normal, I would say, for such a big thing, which is unfortunate. And for example, we know that business studies, more than three-quarters of college-age gamers report in some way some sort of racist, sexist, homophobic comments when they play online games. Research has shown that most of the time, the toxicity that we face tends to be gendered, but it also does tend to focus on minor groups. Um, and there's another survey I recall, like of 1,000 gamers aged 15 to 45, more than half report some sort of harassment, whether it's related to their race, ethnicity, religion, physical ability, gender, sexual orientation. And that's just unfortunate. And I definitely think there is a lot to unpack from this topic. um, but first off, I mean, I want to know what's our personal experience with toxicity. Raymond, from on your end, what have you experienced?
I mean, yeah, I've pretty much faced everything you just mentioned.
Yeah,
But for me, I mean, I never took it too personally
yeah,
because you are, at the end of the day, playing with anonymous people that you'll most likely never meet in person or
yeah.
never meet in another game. Um, yeah, I mean, I guess the most frustrated I ever got was in StarCraft because that was 1v1. So when people do kind of harass you in that, um, you really don't have a team, so you're kind of
Mhm.
taking most of the, I guess, shit talking. And it was worse because when you're losing, you can't really. It's a 1v1, so you can't really kind of pass the blame to anybody else. But other than that, for me, I mean, I always took it more as something funny. So maybe I have a more positive outlook on it
Do you think that's
compared to.
something? You think that's something where you built over time, such as from you recall from the very get go that you just so had that perspective to handle it?
um could be. I mean, you guys played sports too, right?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, face to face, I guess you could say like banter.
Hmm.
I
Mm.
mean, experiencing that and then just having some kids online trash talk you, I really don't think that would be as worse as in person. So maybe that's how, maybe I got, maybe I'm least affected by it
Yeah,
just because I
yeah,
played sports and stuff. So I'm kind of used to, everything, every trash talk is like in the game. So I never took it like outside of the game, like
You're kind of
in my
you're kind of
personal
conditioned for it
day
a
to
little bit.
day. So
Yeah,
yeah, and then I mean, we really can't expect to have, I don't know, a safe, I guess, competitive environment every time. So I mean, you always have one bad actor in each game. So yeah, I never really. I mean, I don't want to say I accept toxicity, but it's more like what can I do? I rather just accept it than kind of have it affect me from
yeah,
like stop playing the game. That's kind of,
yeah.
I mean, you're giving it too much power, in my opinion.
Mm.
I think I mean, something that could be said is like the generation of gaming that we grew up with and how the toxicity has sort of shifted. Like, I think for us, we were growing up in that age, like during formative years of play. Um, it was during like early days of Counter Strike and Team Fortress, like, and Halo 1 and 2, and for the most part, yeah, I think at that time it was more so trash talking, but over the years it's shifted to more like hate speech and more
Yeah,
like personal attacks on like not just play but like on the individual, and then you're also getting things um like threats or even like I don't know what the exact term for it, right? But like, you know, things escalate to like, oh, you should like kill yourself or like self harm or something like that. And I feel like that wasn't as common, at least for me, growing up. But I do think that's definitely like the norm nowadays for like that level of talk to happen.
yeah.
So, would you say the same though, Raymond or Chris?
Yeah, my take is that it's kind of like you said that in the beginning, especially because gaming as a industry is relatively young compared to other things, right? Like film, right? Film and TV, right? Music, it's still relatively quite new, especially online gaming. Um, like, yeah, like you mentioned, Counter Strike 1.6, for example, right? I mean, that was like compared to multiplayer online games, competitive games today, it's much more simpler, so to speak, right? But there were also like a lot of like unwritten rule, like or undefined rules, right? It was kind of was kind of, you could consider like a bit of a wild west. And yeah, in the beginning, it was just more of like trash talk, like any other sports you play in the real world, right? Just trash talk each other, um, whether in between your teammates and or against the other team. But yeah, once the internet started blowing up, becoming more developed, um, and you know the anonymous nature of gaming, right? You have your username, right? Your name might be Chris, but then online you are like like big bad guy, 125, something like that, and you can say whatever you want without any repercussion. And yeah, and it's just the whole, to me, I well not it's probably not the only thing, but definitely the anonymous nature and the feeling that you can say things without repercussion is probably, to me, one of the core reasons why the toxicity has become the way it is, where it just became initially just trash talk to become much more vicious. Um, then it really needs to be it. You argue could have there may be ways that it could have been avoided if there were proper safeguards back then to kind of get the online uh, gaming, I guess, platform infrastructure going in the beginning. But there wasn't really much, right? And now, today you could argue that there are game studios, publishers, game developers that are trying to some way combat it. Um, um, But yeah, I mean, it's definitely a hard question to ask. Personally, from my experience, I mean, I remember the trash talk, like y'all mentioned. I definitely the earliest I remember where I would say I really started experiencing toxicity playing games online. It probably what it was the Halo, I think Halo 2 specifically, where I really started experiencing toxicity. Playing on Xbox, playing Halo 2 online, and great game. I liked it. I really much liked that. I'm sure many people like Halo 2, but one of the reasons why I recall stopping to play Halo was because of that toxicity, and not because so much I don't think I say I couldn't handle it mentally. It's just more that it just got tiresome for me. Like I just want to play a game. I really want to play a game. I enjoyed it. I had fun, a lot of good fun, but it just got bit much. Right. Just here on that one. I'm just trying to play the game. Um, I definitely don't think I was affected to it, but I just generally got tired of it. So I mean, not the same kind of like mental stoicism like Raymond has. Like where you just kind of Raymond just accepted it, and then like it was just part of it, and be able to kind of like put that wall up. Um, but for me, I just simply walked away from it, and um yeah, I think from there it's just you know gaming online just didn't have a lot of safeguards compared to compared to where they are today. Although you can argue today it's probably you can do a lot more about that.
I would even say though that like maybe there aren't really that many safeguards today, right? Like because it's toxicity is running rampant, right? And I feel like the trajectory that games has taken from those early days of like competitive play to where they are now, like I think there was more involved there to sort of control toxicity, because I think it was actually more in the hands of the players at the time. Now it's heavily reliant on developers and admins to do something. But you don't also get like an immediate response. Like you're going to experience the toxicity, the game is over, and who knows what happened to that individual. But like back in the day, you're playing on a server for like Counter Strike or Dave Defeat. That was something that we played a lot, Chris, growing up. And there were admins like in game, and if someone was being a bad apple, like you could easily call for like a group kick, right? And a majority of the server would have to vote in on this. But I felt like that actually dealt with a lot of toxicity at the time, and I feel like we really don't see that as often today, especially with like smaller groupings of things, right? Like a lot of competitive play now is limited to like 5 or 6 person teams, if sometimes even less than that as well. And so it's hard to really manage those types of stuff, and then you just have to report someone, but who knows if anything ever happens to that individual, right? And they're just going to go on and be toxic in the next game and impacting other people.
I'm kind of curious, Raymond, like on your end, because I know you play League of Legends a lot, and I mean I've tried League of Legends. I don't personally play it very much at all. I've dabbled it to kind of get an idea of what it is, but I know infamously League of Legends is known to be a game where it's a bit ruthless in like in how people are treating that game. I mean, the moment you do something that maybe others consider like a failure or something that screw up, then it's just correct me if I'm wrong, but it can be pretty vicious from the get go. But that game, I mean, given how big that game is, I mean, is there some sort of um, moderation, whether on any level, whether on the gamer level, the player level, the community level, to the game development, the game itself, or the game development side? Has that been any kind of like moderation you've seen for League?
I mean, on player level, you can, the typical, you can mute players,
Yeah,
or you can like just mute all chats, even pings from players.
yeah,
So you know how you can ping the map, so you can mute that. There's like a language filter that Riot uses.
yeah.
Other than that, for gaming, I mean, there's like role queues, like for Overwatch. So they have those where you can just pre-select the role that you're most comfortable with. And yeah, over the years, I mean, the penalties, not for like toxic, I guess, toxic behavior in terms of griefing, or like intentionally throwing, those penalties are way harsher now.
Mm.
So, I mean, I'm not an angel. Um, I've done some stuff. So, you know, the penalties you receive are pretty, like, now I know I don't want to maybe leave games early because, I know we're losing or things like that.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I guess that would, for me, it curved my behavior where if I'm losing, I'll stick it out for the 40 minutes of losing instead of
Mm.
leaving like 50 minutes into a game.
Yeah.
Because, like, the harshest penalty I ever got was, I think I had like a 72-hour ban. And then
That's
when
a
you
long
queue
time.
for a game, you wait, yeah, so you wait 72 hours and you have to queue for 15 minutes.
Mm.
So I guess your matchmaking opens at 15 minutes. So you're just in queue for 15 minutes. And that lasted for 5 games.
Yeah.
So I mean, they're taking, you know, harsher steps to, if anything, for griefing and stuff. Because I think that's more of an issue. I mean, verbal stuff is bad, yeah, but like people throwing games and intentionally doing stuff to I guess affect your gameplay. I think that's a bigger issue
Yeah.
to me personally. Yeah, the verbal stuff you can mute it and everything, but people you know directly affecting your games by leaving early or feeding the other team. I think that's more of an issue to me personally.
All right. So Raymond. So based on what you told me your experience with League, it sounds like that for you personally, there is some sort of behavior change to you. Like there is some sort of impact. But would you say that's just you personally, or do you think that on like the overall League community, League player base, right, that there is a a a greater effect, like a real impact on a group level that you've seen?
Um, I'm not sure. I can't really, because I play League, but I'm more casual. Cause, but I could bring up an example for Overwatch. Because when they introduced the role queues and privating profiles,
Yeah.
I think that really like turned down the toxicity. 'Cause I don't know if you guys remember playing ranked before role queues.
Mm-hmm.
So like because like I main tank healer, and then when I wanted to just play DPS sometimes, they would go into your profile, and check your like your hours played on each heroes. And I used to get messages. They're like, "WTF? Why are you on DPS?" and stuff like that. So I think like I remember, yeah, in Overwatch, I think that kind of helped with kind of the toxicity of people telling you how to play.
Mm.
Because now you can kind of just pre-select
Mm.
and like get those like psychopaths off your back. Because there were days I just even though it was rank, I just wanted to fool around and try a new champ or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there were many times where in comms or through PSN, they were just tell me like, "Oh, why are you on DPS? Switch back to Ryan. That's your most hours played."
Well, I guess that just tells us that there are players that are really, I guess you could say, passionate about their game they're playing, but maybe the way they're communicating it could be better, right? You know. they want to win, right? Everyone wants to win, I
It's just so
suppose. But
embarrassing because we were only diamond.
so it sounds like that based on the examples with League, right? Like being able to pre-select what types of roles that you play. Obviously being able to mute players or ping, and punishments. You know, games are providing a kind of like opportunity cost, right? Like either you want to be an ass and be hateful, or be quit mid game and suffer the opportunity cost of having to wait to play a game again. Seems to be working, but at the end of the day, it's still, unfortunately, we still see toxicity. Although hopefully, maybe there is some change. Like, I don't know what data there is out there to kind of tell us what the trend is, whether or not there's an improvement or things are getting worse or the same. But I mean, I'm kind of curious of why, at the core of it all, what is driving the whole toxicity issue. I mean, yeah, the anonymity, the not being anonymous of it is a core part of it. I suppose you hear things that maybe it could be social issues too, um, like people are being isolated. I mean, you hear these days, right? I mean, especially when the pandemic hit, you hear the news about how people became much more isolated and there were social mental issues that arise from it. I wonder if playing games is an outlet for the effects of being somewhat isolated. I don't know. I kind of wonder about that, right? Because I remember there are players out there, right? I mean, I like to be as much as the good person as much as possible. Trying to push back against that when I'm playing online with anyone else, right? And every once in a while, I see people who are just really nasty, and you have people on there trying to be positive and push back, and they point out things that hey, are you okay? Something wrong? And some people are responsive. Some people actually respond and say, oh hey, having a bad day. I've heard it. I've heard it. And so that does make me think that maybe there is something more going on in the background socially, that could be attributing to the toxicity. I don't know, but it would be curious to be. And I wonder if it's a generational thing too, right? I mean, I don't know. As millennials, I'm not sure because we're millennials. I do wonder if maybe millennials as a culture, maybe we're a bit more toxic verbally, especially because we were all playing games at a phase where gaming was a bit more of a wild west compared to this now. Um, I do play Valorant here and there once in a while, and I know Gen Z. That game is definitely a Gen Z oriented game. I mean, so all the language I see being written and the word speaking, Riz, mid, all that good stuff. I was like, whoa, I don't know what these words are, but definitely not millennial talk. So I personally wonder if maybe also it's become a generational thing too, and that when I play Valorant, I always wonder, is Gen Z just nicer? Compared to us millennials. I wonder. I don't know if y'all kind of felt that way when you were all playing online or noticed that. I mean, Andrew, I mean, anything like that you see or noticed?
It might just be tied to the Valorant per se for that one, but like my time in Apex, a lot of just like angry or hateful people, which I don't think they had like a proper mute function for quite some time when Apex originally launched, and so sometimes you just kind of have to deal with it. But once they integrated that mute function, I muted everybody constantly all the time,
Mm.
and then just reported them. I mean, it was like a running joke for when we were playing Chris, but like every game, I'd just be reporting everybody
Yeah.
for anything and everything. But yeah, I mean that I think that for me that's how I kind of come to deal with it. I mean, just because like I find it distracting as well, because like usually when I'm playing in a competitive space, even if I'm not like trying to necessarily go ranked, I do try to like dial in and to have like any additional noise or like conversation happening, unless it's like geared towards the game. I find it very distracting actually, so I'm more prone to just mute on a fairly regular basis. But yeah, that's more so for current games I've played though. But like aside from Apex, I really am not in a competitive scene anymore. I mean, prior to that was the um, during the early 2000s or so, up until like Team Fortress 2 or something. Yeah, those are probably where I was playing the most competitive games. That even then I wouldn't say like Toxicity was particularly bad, but I also think like the way the mic system worked, like you had to intentionally mic up if you wanted to say something, and
Mm.
just adding that extra step, I feel like might have deterred people. But over time, especially on console gaming, like you can just have your mic going at any point, and so with that, it maybe there's something to be said where it's just like easier to like talk for better or worse through that. But back in the day, if you wanted to say something and you were motivated enough to say it, you had to hit that cue button, right, to actually chime in and share your thoughts. So
What was it called? Ventrilo we were using back then. Memory lane.
yeah. Hmm.
So I'm kind of curious. So outside of this recording, professionally, you work with a lot of different people, right? From different backgrounds. Professionally, Andrew, for your work. So I'm sure you see a lot. You work with the types of people from all backgrounds, age groups too. I mean, would you? I'm just curious. Would you say that there is a bit of a difference in types of generation that you observed in any way? Just curious if you have noticed anything like that.
um it's hard to say for certain, just because of the nature of my work. Like when I do have to engage with people, like if you're there, you've come to talk, right? And
Mm,
so people, one, people are willing to converse. For the most part, generally speaking, people are pretty pleasant overall. Sometimes you have a couple of bad apples, but that I wouldn't say is necessarily restricted to any particular age group or generation of people.
mm,
Yeah, but I have heard of some stories from other folks in a slightly different context where it's not necessarily like mandated to speak, where you'll get like different types of responses from folks. Some of it seeming pleasant, some of it a little bit more aggressive than what you would normally expect in that particular context.
mm.
But what about you guys? I mean, do you guys see that when in your guys' work, or like um, it's like new hires come in or anything?
Mm, okay, I wouldn't say work. This example is work related, but I remember when I played basketball. I mean, this was like over 6 years ago. But like when I played with the younger guys then, um, to me they seemed much more sensitive compared
Mm.
to like our generation and like our older, like our the generation before us.
Mm.
I mean, that's one example I can think of where like they were, I guess, more prone to calling fouls and stuff compared to like, I guess, what I went through challenging like the older guys when I was younger, where they would
Mm.
just kick your ass. But then when I was playing with these younger guys, they kind of, I guess, bitched and complained about everything. So I don't know if that ties into the, I guess, rise in toxicity where, maybe Gen Z is a little bit softer.
Mm.
I don't know if I'm gonna get roasted for saying that, but
No. Well, I think
that's my
no, I think the point is that I don't think what you're saying is wrong in the sense that like there's a bit more sensitivity, but I think maybe sensitivity, less sensitivity, but more the fact that exposure, right? I mean, like, when we were all growing up, right? We had the internet, but it was in phases, right? We didn't have social media. We had like instant messaging, right? We had like MySpace, like just it was a lot of pictures, audios, and text based communications, right? Um, and then slowly we evolved to social media as it is today, right? Where you get like constant feeds and people being able to record things on their own. So for Gen Z, being able to being grown at a young age, being exposed to that constant feed of people just showing the world what's out there, right? Like when we're young, right? We had to rely on books, whatever came out on like VHS, DVD at the time, and traditional newspaper, and eventually transformed to online news, so forth. But it was still limited. We were still like limited to what we were seeing. We had to go out of our way to learn it either in class and gradually as the internet grew to become what it is today. Whereas Gen Z is just like, bam, you have mobile phones, or you have all these apps, right? New apps coming out, especially in the early 2000s, right? New apps coming out that were just pushing different types of content, and everyone can just push whatever they're feeling. They can record what they're feeling, record whatever's happening. I I just got fired by work, or I just got like I just failed my test, my exam, or I just got a new car. It's just constant feed. So Gen Z is just exposed to the world, right? And and it could be that people then therefore, because you see people like being triggered, or people calling out those whatever things that they see, right? So therefore Gen Z maybe is a bit more, you could say, more, lack of a better word, sensitive to it, or just I guess more exposed to it. Therefore, they are more reactive to it. Especially because when you're on social media, right? Maybe TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, whatever. Right? You see something and you can quickly like it, down face it, happy face it, or comment on it, right? So maybe that habit, ends up coming out into the real world too, um, not on their phones, but how how they interact with, like, whether it's esports or physical sports, or even the work office. And I based my personal experience. So I last company I was at, I did hired a girl who she was in the age group of Gen Z, and she definitely portrayed habits that were definitely for me empathetic, especially because I hired her as her manager. And but yeah, she definitely was um, voicing a lot of opinions about about what she saw online and taking that into the office. So you know, it could be yeah, the generational part. Although I like to think that because of that exposure, that I like to think that Gen Z maybe is more empathetic in general to people's feelings and emotions, which I think to me is a good thing. I mean, I think empathy is a good thing. Too much empathy can be a bad thing, but in general, having empathy, especially these days, is a good thing, especially in the workplace. So yeah, my experience with Valorant, I don't have the data to back it up, but I'm kind of connecting to that. Maybe because that exposure, people, players that have experience on Valorant, which are a lot of mainly Gen Z, are definitely more nicer, which is good. But I suppose at the core of it all, how would the world combat toxicity? I mean, yeah, we have those tools that you mentioned. For example, in League, you can mute players, you can have the ping system, choosing your roles at a time. But I mean, how I wonder what more could be done to really get rid of it all. I mean, realistically, we probably can't get rid of toxicity 100%, but what could be done? I wonder. Um, You guys have any thoughts on that? Like, what if we could try to root the core cause of it all?
On a societal level, is
Yeah,
that what
yeah,
you're meaning?
could be it.
Talking about?
Yeah, yeah. What would be, what would it take? I wonder.
Jesus.
That
Uh,
might be a little above our pay grade uh, to to think about it at that particular level. But I don't know. I mean, I think it's it's hard to say for certain right now. I mean, just given the current political landscape of everything, right? We have like politicians who are saying some of the most like heinous things, not just to like adults or peers, but even to like children or like other specific populations or minority groups, just like all heinous things. And that's becoming normalized to see like these adults or like professionals doing it. So it's like, why can't I say it in my little game world, right? And so I think until that element changes, we won't see like a larger societal change happen. But whenever that occurs, who knows?
Any thoughts, Raymond, on that?
mm, not really. Okay, tell me if this is a crazy take. Like, if you, they should allow, like, there's no language filter, but if you want to say, like, I guess you would say a list of the banned words in gaming, so like racist comments and stuff,
Hmm.
there should be a feature where, right, if you're willing to post it, it should, like, the game should just DDoS you. So, like, okay, like, I guess for like our generation, like, I don't know about you guys, but there are certain, like, online, I kind of talk the same way that I talk in real life.
Hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because you know how I guess we weren't born online, if that makes sense, like Gen Z.
Hmm.
So I
Mm-hmm.
think we know kind of the repercussions of talking shit because we had kind of like that real life experience, getting into a fight or things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe since people are kind of too comfortable, you know, like if you read Reddit comments, YouTube comments, just like all the social media comments, how
Hmm.
they're like, all those racist and like people arguing in the comments. I think it's controversial, but like if you want to go in that direction on those sites, you get automatically DDoSed, and then I think that would stop the toxicity right away. Because I think half those people wouldn't say it in person.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
But that's
that
my.
definitely seems like a Black Mirror episode that is waiting to happen.
But you imagine it could work
But
though.
that's
I
like
mean, like,
if you want to get rid of it overnight.
yeah.
So you can say a racist remark or a sexist remark, but the game will prompt you if you hit enter, we are going to DDoS you and everyone will know who you are. So let's see if you want to say that again next time.
Well, I guess at the core about that yeah, what we're trying to
Yeah.
say is that there needs to be some sort of like real world ramifications for the actions that people are doing, which makes sense, right? I mean, there weren't much consequences back then when we were playing, but there are consequences, or there could be consequences now. I don't know. I don't know if DDoSing or or doxing anyone in general is going to fly for privacy purposes. But yeah, you can argue that having real quote unquote punishment would definitely deter players. Um, and I also would say, gotta have a bit more of like a moderation, like more active participation, moderation, meaning that not so much the game has to moderate, although a game should always have tools in place to deter it and moderate, like filters and you know um, like a banning or punishment in game and so forth. But having a game, having those tools and relying on it is kind of like just relying on a band-aid to fix the wound, right? I mean, like you really need to fix the core problem, which in my opinion right now is on a social level. um i mean on a social level, two parts obviously. It's from the bottom up and top down both ways, right? It's neither one or the other. So the bottom up meaning that we as people, um, just have to, as a whole, somehow, understand that this just is just not good. I mean, I'm sure, and at some level, everyone knows it's bad, right? Even the people who are guilty of doing that kind of stuff, on some level, they know what they're doing is bad. But for those who are doing it, don't feel that it can be done without. Um, they can just do it regardless. So on some social level, I don't know, maybe that means educating people early in their childhood, maybe in grade school, like bullying, cyberbullying, and really pushing harder, um, some sort of program to kind of really change people from the beginning to understand that it's really not, they're not good. I mean, yeah, we do know there are programs out there, during grade school to teach our kids that bullying is bad, but the times are changing, right? And bullying back then, that what we learned it to be, right, it's not the same as it is today. So there needs to be a bit more, I suppose, a bit more of awareness, awareness, or a maybe update to those kind of programs to bring awareness. And also on the top end, I mean that, yeah, that culture has got to like, be brought down, and made it clear that it won't be tolerated 100%. Whether that's from the game publishers, the game developers, and having moderators, right? Like Andrew, your example you mentioned when we were playing, Day of Defeat Source in particular. We had admins there, right? And the servers that you and I were playing, Andrew. Unfortunately, I forgot the name of the server we were playing, but I recall the admins were they were pretty mature. And we knew. I mean, think about it now. They definitely were older. And definitely were like at least 20s, 30s, 40s, maybe older. I don't know. Right, but definitely older and more mature. And I do recall them are really, um, you know, paying attention to bad actors in that game, and like either putting taking them to a timeout corner and calling them out on it, or maybe not calling them out on it, but addressing the issue very carefully and making sure that the server stays very clean. um, and I guess we need to have more of that in some way. I mean, not to say that we don't have that, but I mean, would we say, but from what I've experienced so far, I mean, I can't say I've seen enough of it on my end. I don't know. I don't know about you guys. Do you guys think there's enough moderation, either on like the game level and the like administrative level? You think?
I mean, it's hard to say for certain. I mean, when I was on Apex more regularly, I it like it's hard to know, how any of these people are being impacted. After I would report them, and sometimes it would be like multiple people reporting them in the game, right? Where it was just like, we're playing a squad of three, and then like we have one just like irritating person, and then I would report them. My teammate would report them, and so like, okay, so that's two out of three. But then like, what happens there? I don't know. I never really see them again, and they continue on and get queued up with somebody else, or maybe they do get banned or get set on like a timeout. But it's, I guess, with the way competitive gaming has kind of like gone on, we, um, we sort of have lost that like immediate action, um, the way that things have shifted to these like smaller queues of people. While before, you could, of like a server of like 24 people, there's a good chance that someone there is an admin, right? But then again, you know, uh, like I said before, there was like power with the players as well. Like you could initiate like a kick or even a ban sometimes too, right? You would have to get like a majority vote with the entirety of the server as a whole. But I'm not sure how that would work in today's scene, just because these queues are so small, and then you don't really get to hear what is happening with the other team as well to be able to like chime in on that type of stuff. But if there's a way to work that in, maybe there could be some additional accountability. But what about you, Raymond? I saw that you're looking like you're about to chime in.
But yeah, I mean, I think they're doing everything they could. All these game studios.
Mm.
But like, yeah, I remember moderators. But like for a game like League that has like I just searched it. It's like 10 million players a day active. So I don't know how they would, have like individual moderators in each game.
Mhm.
So I think just the scope of the games now. But other than that, you know, any drastic changes, unless, you know, the companies they take a hit on their revenue, I don't think they would take any more steps to like I don't know, it would be in their best interest if it I don't know affects their player count, revenues and all that stuff.
Hmm.
But other than that, I don't see I think it'll be like a bottom up kind of change. Because I think top down,
Yeah.
it's if it affects them, yeah, then they'll make changes. But you know, if they're making a couple million on skins, but it's like a toxic environment, I think they'll still take the profits over a couple of people complain about toxicity. So I don't sound like
Yeah.
a politician, but it starts from the home.
I mean, I
Well, I think so, though.
I
I mean, I think that there's something to be said there.
yeah. So I think the opinion that in a ideal world, this definitely won't happen. But in a I think the opinion that if on the top end side, right, you had game companies, the executives, game developers, really put the hammer down on on weeding out, kicking out toxicity, right? That it could work, and I see that coming from the perspective of that. What alternative would there be, right? I mean, so let's say you have your Fortnites, you have your Apex, you have your League of Legends, right? You have your Call of Duty, right? And and say these games, yes, these games are making tons of money for the companies, right? Sure. And you could say, yeah, you worry that as executive, right, about what the financial impacts are if you try to really put the hammer down on toxicity, and you worry what happens if we alienate our player base. Yeah, I mean it's true. You would most likely alienate people, like, oh, like, I'm being like, like silenced or whatever. Sure, and therefore I'm gonna not play, right? But realistically, where are these players gonna go, right? And making a game doesn't take time. Yeah, you could argue, oh, well, someone else is gonna make a game that will allow me to do it, right? Yeah, okay, sure, that's hypothetically true. But how long is that going to take, right? Game is making game is not that easy. Software in general. I mean, I don't make games, but I make software, and it takes a while, right? To make something a real product for a customer to enjoy. So for gamers, right? I mean, where would you go, right? If let's just say, for example, in some fantasy world, Call of Duty becomes the de facto number one example of how to, you know how to weed out, stop toxicity 100%, right? And then you have people who are like up in ends, complaining about it. Well, where they're gonna go to play an alternative COD, right? COD is COD. COD is COD, and who is gonna? There are many games have tried to topple Call of Duty as alternative, but no one has beaten them, right? In some way. I mean, COD is COD. Where are you gonna go? Either you complain, right, and you boycott the game, but then what are you gonna do, right? You're gonna jump to Fortnite. I mean, COD and Fortnite are two different things, right? They're not the same. I'm sure both are very fun, but very different. So I like to think that in some world, if the top band put the hammer down hard on Toxicity, right? Like these, like insane, like you mentioned, Raymond, right? You quit a game in the middle of a game, you get like a really heavy ban, or like ban, or like a punishment, like a queue time, right? And that's gonna force people. They may hate it, they might complain about it, they might talk shit about it on Reddit or whatever, right? And complain about like, oh my god, these games companies are like, are being asses or whatever. But then what are you gonna do, right? If you want to play the game, you're gonna have to follow suit and just simply just don't talk shit. All right, be a nice person, kind of thing, right? But and that kind of then trickles down to the whole bottom up, right? Well, you kind of have to build your character personally to just be the better person, you know. So that's the way I take. But I do agree with what Raymond's saying, is that there are executives, not necessarily the game studios. I'm sure game studio developers want to make the best game possible, regardless of revenue. But on the publisher side, right, the corporate executive side, right, of course, they are naturally thinking that, well, we don't want to drop our financials, right, because of our push to root out toxicity, as hard as they probably could be. So, but yeah, that's my take. That's my take.
I did hear of a game that I didn't know was even a thing when it first released, but EA had their own MOBA as well. It was called Dawn Gate, and it seemed like they implemented some things to like reward good behavior. It seemed like I mean it. I think at the time they were ahead of the curve, and so some of it might seem dated now, but like when it first launched, it seemed like if you were like a positive individual, people could like reward you or like honor you or something, and then with that you would get like a bump in your XP rewards and things like that, right? But if you were not a great person, you wouldn't get these rewards, right? And then that would force you to like have to grind. And so it was in your best interest to be like not just like don't be a jerk, but like actively have to be a good teammate to play with, right? I could be getting that wrong, at least on some of the finer details, but I think that was sort of like the general mindset behind it. But seemingly that MOBA didn't last too long, and then EA canceled it before it really got a chance to like shine or like compete against League and Dota at the time.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
never heard of that game.
Yeah.
So was it too positive?
Uh,
Was it toxic positivity?
maybe I don't know, but I mean, like maybe that would have been better, I guess. But I don't know, it would like inflate everybody's ego.
Oh,
You can do anything. Yeah, you can be top ranked number one. So something like that. Yeah.
It's okay to have that 0 to 20 KD, Rich.
No, we're all team players, right? All team players. Yeah. So I think I I really think, for me personally, I like, it's 2024, right? We're hitting 2025, and gaming is gonna be going on for however long. I mean, gaming's not going anywhere, right? It's just going to change. It makes me wonder how it's going to change. And me personally, I do hope that gaming becomes, um, socially a much better place to be, for all people to play. I mean, because gaming, gaming is a great form of entertainment, right? And not just for purely entertainment purposes, but like either for artistic expression. I mean, yeah, obviously enjoyment, but for bring out creativity, competitiveness, right? Um, Storytelling. All a game can be different things. So it would be a shame where people drop out of playing a game, whether it's single player or online or anything like that, because of toxicity. And I mean, toxicity. It's still we still don't still there. And you know what? For me personally, I do find it very uncomfortable, um, to hear toxicity when it's a knowing that gaming is a male dominated place, that you have women, female players, girls, playing games, and coming to a place where it's not very comfortable, for them, right? I mean, so I give a lot of credit. So I mean, like, when I play games online and I hear a girl play, she's playing, she's having fun, with her friends, guy friends, other girlfriends, and they're having fun. It's great. I think that's great, especially knowing how like it can be pretty bad. Um, I play Valorant here and there once in a while. I mean, I hear girls play and they're having such a great time, right? So it's pretty cool. And you know, it just gets to me, wanting to everyone to enjoy that this art form. To me, it is an art form, a interactive art form, and also for our our future generation too, right? Like, I have my son. I mean, fortunately, for my son, he's already older, but he doesn't play much online games. I mean, I remember him playing GTA Online, and I'm pretty sure he was talking a little shit in Japanese, to his friends online, which is interesting. But other than that, he fortunately was not so exposed to all that so much. He's still playing Nintendo, Dragon Quest, Mario, that kind of stuff. Um, but for those who have younger kids, that we know inevitably they will be exposed to games in some way, right? I definitely wouldn't want them to experience that at all. Um, and I really do hope that there will be change in some way, so that the future generation can just enjoy the game as a safe place to be. And after school, play games online, great, have some fun, right? Go back to school the next day, repeat again. Enjoy your childhood that way. So it's like, or we come back from work, we play, enjoy our games, blow some steam, go back to work next day, repeat, enjoy our lives playing games again, repeat. Something like that. So yeah, that's my thing. I really do hope that toxicity, um, does get much better than what it is now. And I definitely would like to. I definitely will play my part, wherever I can, to make sure that that gets called out when it should not exist. Yeah.
On that note, I think we're getting a little long in the tooth, and I feel like that's a great place to stop on a little bit more of a positive note. But with that said, like always, like, comment, and subscribe down below. But until next time, we'll see you. Bye.